riffing with the president of Dean College.
Isn't that spectacular? And I in earlier conversation had called you in.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Pat Gallagher. Thanks for bearing with us for a couple minutes. We'll kick off the Conservation Commission meeting for March 9th. Just before getting started, a brief note that we are going to continue to operate in a hybrid format. Great to see everyone in chambers and on Zoom. Please feel welcome to participate in either format, whether as a proponent or someone who's looking to comment or has questions. If you'd like to participate via Zoom, you can either go through the Zoom application or dial in by phone. Through the Zoom app, you would use the meeting number 819-3768-4524, or you can dial the phone number 929-205-6099, and again, the same meeting number, which is 819-3768-4524, and you're able to comment either in person in chambers or via Zoom. So please feel free to do whichever mode you are comfortable with. Before getting started with tonight's agenda, just want to do a quick roll of the commissioners we have with us tonight.
Richard Johnson.
Thanks, Richard. I'm Pat Gallagher. Meg, I see you.
Meg Hagan, present.
Great. And Mark?
Mark LePage, present.
Great. You can just note that Jeff Milne, Jeff Livingstone, and Michael Ryan are not with us this evening. We're going to go a little bit out of order on our agenda just before starting the public hearings. We have a presentation on an Eagle Scout service project for Delcart Recreation Area. That would be great. Yep.
Okay. Hi, my name is Sibi Dinakaran. I will be doing a project at Delcart. I've called it the Delcart Area Renovation and Cleanup Project. And this project will basically consist of three parts. The first part is a trail cleanup. So my volunteers, most of which will be scouts, will go through the trail, pick up litter, mainly in the trail directly adjacent to the lake. Okay. But also venturing a little bit outside of that. They're going to be picking up litter, picking up trash, refuse, anything else that should not be there. The second project will be mending the trail. Anyone here who has walked along Delcart Trail recently will note that immediately after the dam adjacent to the entrance parking lot, at the trailhead, it branches off into two forks. On the right side, there is a gaping pothole about 1 to 2 meters squared in size, which can be a hazard to pedestrians going through that area. I would like to fill that up. And the third part of my project is installing posts at the main trail junctions at the corners of the trail. And these will be made of wood, and they'll have an anti-littering sign on them. We've also discussed the possibility of including a garbage disposal unit attached to these posts. And I'm open for questions.
Great. Thanks very much, Sibi. Brika, any questions from you?
No questions. I guess I do have one. Thanks.
Go for it.
I always say that, and then it's just my buying time phrase. Well, you're still planning on doing this March 17th?
Yes, so that will be the weekend of March 17th, so next weekend.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have time after school sometime next week to go out and we can actually mark the areas that you're looking to install the posts?
Of course. I actually have images on a map of where those would be, so I can share that with you.
That's awesome.
That'd be great. Thank you. Richard?
Would you put a sign up there where, the trails fork one way or the other?
Sure.
When I was out there, because it's been the first time I ever been down there, I said, well, I didn't know whether that trail went someplace or this trail went someplace.
Yeah.
Just something to confirm that both the trails get you around there.
Yep.
Perhaps.
Maybe. Yeah. So when you cross that dam, it branches off into a left path and a right path. And it's like that for, I would say, probably 20, 30 meters or so, but then they converge again. So it's not
Okay.
going to two separate trails.
That's something our Forest Stewardship Plan is addressing too, is the properly marking those trails. Anything else?
Meg, Mark, any questions, comments?
No, sounds good though.
Yeah, no questions from me. I like the sound of it, and thank you for going out there and putting attention to a park that we all love.
Great.
Well, thanks very much, for coming in tonight, but also for this project, right? Delcart is one of the areas in town that I think makes Franklin unique, and it's not a resource that, you find in other places. And so it's very near and dear to us as a Conservation Commission, to the town, and so the more we can kind of tend for it, and make it better, everything, every little bit counts. So thanks very much, and I think, can we do a motion to endorse the project?
I'd like to make a motion, we endorse our Eagle Scouts project.
Okay.
Meg Hagan, I second that.
Thanks, Meg. Mark, how do you vote?
I vote to endorse.
Richard?
So do I.
Meg?
I vote to endorse.
I do as well. Sibby, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
You just volunteered
Appreciate
for
what
some
you're
work.
doing.
Yay.
So from there, we'll move into our first public hearing for this evening. This is a continuance for 74 South Street. Is the owner or the representative on with us tonight?
I do not see them, no.
Brika, can you give just a quick update of the communication from their consultant?
Yes, as of today, we received an updated plan and letter, which I have yet to carry on to beta. Have not had a chance to review that, so I don't have any comment, unfortunately. They have removed the silt fence as requested. The straw wattles are still in place.
I think we had asked them to swap out the straw wattles
did.
as well, so if you wouldn't mind just following up on that.
I can, Pat.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Richard, any questions?
Not now. No, I'm good.
Meg, Mark, any questions?
No questions from me at this time. Thank you.
No, thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Interesting though, they didn't move the straw, huh, Brika, even after we had that conversation.
They did not, no.
All right.
I think interesting is a good word for that.
Good descriptive.
Yes. This is a public hearing. If any members of the public wish to comment, you're welcome to do so now. Hearing none, Richard, can I have a motion to continue this to, what are we up next? March 22nd?
22nd. I'd like to make a motion to continue the NOI for 74 South Street to March 22nd.
Okay. Mark? can
Meg
I-
Hagan,
oh,
sorry.
Thanks, Meg. Go ahead.
Meg Hagan, I second that.
Mark, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Richard?
Vote to continue.
Meg?
I vote to continue.
And Pat Gallagher, I vote to continue as well. So the hearing for 74 South Street is continued to March 22nd. Next up, we have a continuation of 121 Grove Street public hearing. I am recused from this, which means unfortunately we do not have a quorum to discuss this project this evening. So
Not much to discuss.
with apologies to the team, I think we'll just need to vote on a continuation. So I'll leave that to the three of you guys.
Okay. So,
This is Chris Lucas. Hi. May I speak?
Actually,
Yeah, we don't have a quorum, Chris,
We can't hear this right now without a
So-
quorum.
unfortunately.
No, that's fine. We wanted to continue without discussion, other than, I guess, Brika, how would you proceed on the sidewalk scheduling?
Yeah, so we're gonna have to take this offline because we don't have a quorum, so
Okay.
this is something that we'll have to discuss via email. Thanks though, Chris.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you all very much.
Yep.
so do we make a motion? a motion to continue the NRAD for 121 Grove Street to March 22nd.
Second that.
So, shall we vote? This is the first time I've done it.
It's your show.
Okay, my show. Well, I vote to continue.
Meg Hagan, I vote. Oh, go
Jump
ahead,
right
Mark,
in.
sorry.
Mark,
Meg
what do you?
Hagan, I vote to continue.
Mark LePage, vote to continue. Thanks, Reggie.
We're going to vote to continue 121 Grove Street to the 22nd, the ANARAD. Now you can come back in.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Richard. And again, apologies for that, folks. Next up, we have continuation of the NOI for 30 Uncas Brook Row. Hi, how are you?
That makes sense. Nice setup. Nice setup.
Good evening, Bill Halston from Land Planning Incorporated.
Hey, Bill.
Since we visited last, we've got comments from Beta and hopefully addressed them all adequately. I think that's it.
Would it make sense to hear from John?
Thank you. John Nero, Beta Group. So we did provide comments on this. They were responded to by Land Planning. We found that essentially every comment that was brought up was addressed adequately. The only outstanding comment that we noted was the delineation and depiction of the bank to Uncas Pond on the plans. Now, the plans show a surveyed edge of water as the edge of the resource area. However, you know, as bank is defined at 310 CMR 1054, it is a, you know, essentially a terrestrial separation between the water and the land. However, we did do a site visit and we did observe that the location of the edge of water that was surveyed at the time of the survey versus the bank as we saw it, you know, per the regulatory definition in the field, were within, you know, say 5 to 10 feet of each other. Given the fact that this is a buffer zone project and the entirety, you know, essentially the entirety of the lots in buffer zone that's previously developed, that depiction would not change, in our opinion, the regulatory compliance of the project, either under the act or the bylaw. So we do feel like the applicant has provided the commission with sufficient information to issue an order on the project. We just weren't able to confirm the precise boundary of that resource area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brika, are you comfortable with going forward on that
Yeah, I'm
basis?
comfortable with that. So we can close it. I can draft the conditions, make that note. I'm envisioning our standard special conditions for a project of this nature. You can sign it at the next hearing. So I'm comfortable closing. And then just in our OOC, and when we're filing, we'll make that depiction
Okay.
for the bank.
Would there be any reason to have approval conditioned on an updated plan that you know, updates the delineation, or is it not? I mean, this is an ORAD, so I don't know to what degree that's really necessary, but
You can, it's not uncommon for decisions like this just to state that, so then in the future, if there's any sort of other delineation, they can't reference this plan.
okay.
So it's whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm comfortable with it.
Okay. Richard, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good with it.
Meg, any questions or comments on this?
Nothing for me at this time, thank you.
Mark?
And no questions from me. No questions from me, but thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Mark. So yeah, I think I'm comfortable just with our standard special conditions, and then, you know, I don't know if it would be added as a condition per se or a note just acknowledging that the delineation, you know, that there's a discrepancy between, you know, the regulatory definition and what's shown on the plans.
Yep, fine.
Bill, does that work for you?
I guess so.
Okay, great.
I'm not a wetland scientist, so I can't answer.
Fair enough. This is a public hearing. If any members of the public either in person or on Zoom, would like to comment, please feel free to do so. Great. Seeing none. Meg, can I have a motion to close the public hearing for 30 Uncas Brook?
Yep, I submit a motion to close the hearing for for the NOI for 30 Uncas Brook Row.
Thanks, Meg. Mark, can I get a second for that?
Second that.
Richard?
I vote to approve.
Great. Meg, how do you vote?
Yeah, I vote to close.
Mark?
Vote to close.
And I vote to close as well. So the public hearing for 30 Uncas Brook Row is closed. Now, Meg, can I have a motion to approve an order of conditions for 30 Uncas Brook Row, subject to our standard special conditions and a caveat regarding the discrepancy in the delineation?
Yep, so I submit a motion to approve the NOI for 30 Uncas Brook Row with the standard conditions and marking the discrepancy as described by Pat.
Right. Mark, can I have a second for that?
Second that.
Okay. Richard, how do you vote?
I vote to approve.
Meg?
I vote to approve.
Mark?
Vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. So the order of conditions is approved, and that will be signed at our next meeting, Bill. Next up, we have a continuation of the NOI for the Grove Street Phase 2 roadway improvements.
Hi, Brooke Morganelli, Assistant Town Engineer here for the Grove Street Phase 2. So we'll be extending the path, the shared use path on Grove Street from Washington Street, from Tobacco Road until Kenwood Circle. And that will be Phase 2 of the project. We're hoping to, we will be overlaying the road this year. And depending on funding, we'll see how far we can get with the shared use path this year during the construction season.
Great, thank you, Brooke. We had a pretty robust discussion on this at our last meeting, but wanted to give folks another chance if they had questions or comments. So I guess I would just open it up. Richard?
I'm good.
Meg, Mark, any questions before we open it up to the public?
I think we, like, as you said, Pat, we had a great conversation a couple weeks ago and got a lot of information, so I'm good. Thank you, though.
Great.
Yes, and nothing from me. Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Meg. At this point, if any members of the public have any questions or comments on this project, please feel free to share those now. Great. I think you're off the hook, Brooke.
Thank you.
Thanks. Richard, can I have a motion to close the public hearing on the NOI?
I'll give you a motion to close the public hearing for the NOI of Grove Street Phase 2 roadway improvements.
Meg, can I get a second for that, please?
I will second that, please.
Mark, how do you vote?
Vote to close the NOI.
Richard?
I vote to close the NOI.
Meg?
I vote to close.
And I vote to close as well. So the NOI, hearing on the NOI is closed. Now, Richard, can I have a motion to approve the order of conditions for the Grove Street Phase 2 roadway improvements project, subject to our standard special conditions?
Yes. I give you a motion to approve the recommended special conditions 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and 42, 43, 44, 46, 47, 49, 50. And additional condition 52.
Thank you.
Meg?
I'll second that. I'll
Mark?
second that.
Thanks, Mark.
I'll second that, Richard.
Thank
Nice
you,
work.
Richard. Meg, how do you vote?
I vote to approve.
Right, Mark?
Vote to approve.
Richard?
Vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well. So the order of conditions is approved for the Grove Street Phase 2 roadway improvements project. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a notice of intent for 25 Forge Parkway, and this will be the first hearing on this one, so we'll open the public hearing for 25 Forge Parkway. Is the owner or their representative on with us? or with
No,
us?
they requested a continuance based on legal ad circulation.
Okay, great. So we'll be continuing this, under our bylaws, the legal ad needs to circulate for a period of time before we can dive in. And it looks like they still need a DEP number as well.
Yes.
So Mark, can I have a motion to continue the NOI for 25 Forge Parkway, please?
Yep, I motion to continue the NOI for 25 Forge Parkway to March 22nd.
Thank you. Richard?
I second that motion.
Meg, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Okay. Mark?
Vote to continue.
Richard?
I vote to continue.
And I vote to continue as well. So 25 Forge Parkway has been continued to March 22nd. That concludes our public hearings for this evening. Next up in our general business, we have a couple minor buffer zone activity applications. The first of those is for 47 Southgate Road.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Brian Thayer, 47 Southgate Road. I'm before the committee to address a shed on my property, as well as cutting of 2 trees. There is a third tree with 2 shoots that fell onto my property from the wetlands. This tree snagged branches and limbs and broke them off the 2 trees I cut down. These trees became rotted and decayed and posed a safety concern as well as my property. These trees are within the 100-foot buffer zone, but outside the 25 don't touch zone. My intent with the board's permission of permitting is to clean up the right rear corner and rear property line of my property. I'd like to cut the 2 tree stumps to ground level, not removing the stumps, and cut 2 remaining trees in the back line of my property to ground level, not removing the stumps, that pose a risk to personal harm as well as my property. I would like to permit the shed that's 10 feet by 20 feet. I also want to install a 64 feet of fence, 10 steel posts bolted in concrete, 12 inches by 10 inches wide on the right side of my property. The rear of my property, I'd like to install 96 feet of fencing with 12 steel fence posts bolted in 12 inches by 10 inches wide into concrete. Finally, I'd like to have a 18-foot by 33-foot above ground swimming pool. Would have 4 fence posts would be needed where the ladder would be. The grass would be removed where the pool liner would be installed, and a bed of sand would be installed to protect the liner. A minimum of 12 plantings will be planted along the fence line or whatever you recommend.
Great. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you.
Brika, have you had a chance to review?
I have, and I've been out to the site, so just for the commissioners, there's up in this northeast corner here, there's a wetland complex and a culvert right here. In your agent report, sorry, Brian, this stemmed from a call, so part of this work is after the fact, so several of the trees have already been removed, or at least downed. The shed has been moved. It's subsurface. It's fine, really. And then the pool is the new, what is being proposed, same with the fence. So it's all less than 1,000 square feet. I like the addition of plantings. Thanks, Brian. So really, I'd recommend approval since this is probably work that would have already been approved. 2 things to note, though. That fence would be within the 25-foot buffer zone. However, I think to prevent future violations or stockpiling near that wetland complex, it probably makes sense to allow that fence, and it would only be 1 square foot posts going in there. So I leave it up to the commission to discuss what you think would be best for restoration. I definitely think replanting of obviously native plants, that's something that we require here in Franklin. But if you are wary of trees, we can also talk about shrubs. I can definitely work you through that process. I'm here to be a resource, so.
Is the fence on your property line?
It is, yes, it's right on the line.
Okay. Can't ask for more than that.
Where, do you know more or less where the pool is relative to the,
It's within the 50 to 100.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, it's right here. So that's existing disturbed. For the most part, it's all existing disturbed minus the trees in the
Yeah,
back.
those houses have been there for years.
Yeah, and I could talk about the good things that happen. When we get to you, I'll talk about the good things that happen with this project. How about that? Yeah, so there's a happy ending at the end of this. So.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Mark, Meg, any questions?
So are any potential tree replacements a possibility as part of this? Something that's being considered?
Yeah, they would be considered probably later after maybe the 2 years, because down in these areas, Southgate Road, Maple Street, these trees are just falling down like, and, you know, it'd be probably one of the last things that I'd put in to prevent them from getting
Okay.
broken also.
So these permits last for 3 years, Mark. Just FYI.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Meg, any questions or comments for you?
Just a quick question. So I'm looking at the pictures, Brian, that you've submitted. Where is the fence that's already up as far as the property line? I see some pictures of existing fence. Looks like it goes down and maybe even into the wetlands. Is that?
That fence that you're seeing on the pictures, that fence has been there since we've moved in.
Okay.
And, that fence is entangled in the ball of root of the tree that fell. So that's been there, and the previous owner, who's no longer with us, they had animals out there at one time, and that fence was there to help corral the animals. There's a little history of that site, that there's been ponies out there and there's been pigs out there.
Okay.
Huh.
Nobody probably is aware of that.
That must have been a long time ago, I know.
15, 20 years ago, yeah. But I will not be removing that fence.
Yeah, I think just,
I get clarity on where things sit.
yeah, do you see any need to,
It stops a
the
bunch of the
fence?
trash from blowing down.
Well, it's not on his property anyways.
so even more so?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think my only comment is that, you know, as far as any new plantings, I don't think we need to decide that tonight, but if you can continue to coordinate with Brika on those, and I think you can probably find an appropriate mix, that might be the best way forward on that.
Can do that.
Great.
Just one more, sorry, Pat, one more quick question for me. Brika, do we have any concerns with the fence being within the 25 foot? Like, is there any possibility to pull it outside the 25 foot, or is that just sort of where it needs to?
Yes. Typically, we do say 25 feet is a no-touch zone. So without, Freddie foreshadowing too much, this area is a culvert that was installed by the town, actually, for those commissioners that are in chambers, it's right behind here. But an easement was never acquired. So over the years, as you have personnel change, and I think it was described as like Joe down at DPW, he left or he's no longer here, so-and-so can't call Joe at DPW to come clean the culvert, so it really fell through the cracks. And this area is very disturbed. And while we typically don't allow things within the 25 foot, this existing fence that you see here on that's the black fence that's on 45, right? 45 Southgate, that was an existing fence. It's been, in-kind replacement, but, so that was existing in the 25 foot, and I think to prevent any more change around this culvert and this resource, it's probably better to just demarcate it off permanently. So I don't know, I think in all practicality's sake. And it you know, feasibly, it is going to be a steel rod fence like this, so water's still going to freely be able to move through it. It's only going to be, however, 4 posts at most, or 5 posts, something like that. So that's 5 square feet within the 25 foot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Meg. Any other questions or comments before we vote on this?
I don't have any questions. I'm good.
We have a motion to approve?
I'd give you a motion to approve the minor buffer zone activity at 47 Southgate Road.
Okay. Mark, can you second that, please?
Second that.
Meg, how do you vote?
Yeah, vote to approve.
Okay. Mark?
Vote to approve.
Rich?
Vote to approve.
And Pat Gallagher, I vote to approve as well. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the accompanying MBZA for 45 Southgate Road.
Right next door.
Yeah.
Hello,
How are you, sir?
my name's Russell Nilsson, at 45 Southgate Road. Here for approval on a couple of different projects. Some of them are after the fact, as this was our first home purchase last year, so some of it was looking through and just like replacing an old fence that was wood rotted out, and trying to do that to effectively, as we're building a family, to make sure that we have a safe fence that are for the children as they start to grow up, make sure that it's trying to do that ahead of the fact versus afterwards. There are also a couple of trees that are been growing, like up here, for example, that are growing at a tilt that we are weary of and plan to hopefully remove. So with any of like the high winds lately, we see them swaying that we don't want to fall and either hurt anyone that's out in the yard. One of them is leaning over the,
Is that one?
yes,
So those 2 trees are on your property?
yes.
And you'd like them to be gone?
I'd like at least one of them to be gone. Probably would end up just doing both ground down and would plant trees to replace them, as we do like all of the shrubbery and stuff, just
I'd cut
from
them
the
all
safety
down.
aspect of how big they are. They could probably hit our house. There's also 2 other ones that are, and another picture that are by our shed. Maybe the one up there that are, one's leaning and is coming directly towards the property.
Yeah.
So those, any arborist that would come out to look at those would deem those hazardous because they're crotched.
You bet. I'd cut them out.
And are you requesting to take out those that are up against the shed and the last 2 that we were looking
Yeah.
at? So all 4 of those?
Yeah, we'd get them cut down and ground them down and would plant trees to replace them.
Okay.
And the other stuff would be like the fence, we were replacing an old one. I know some of them with digging all the holes and posts would have fallen into this. I wasn't aware of, but bringing it up just after a fact. The shed was back in the corner there that got moved over. My neighbors took it as we were planning to remove, as it was within that 25 feet of the wetlands from when we first acquired the property, but had no use for it. I was going to remove. I believe that covers almost everything that was in my life.
For these trees right here, or this one tree anyways, would it be possible to top them and leave some of the stump?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be my recommendation. That way it can still be habitat and still
Were you
at least
going to
provide.
grind those and put?
Whatever was going to be
Yeah.
Rika's
Were you going to
recommendation.
plant some more trees there, or?
Yeah, we
Okay.
plant more trees in the back there just to replace them, just so there is the shrubbery continuing to grow back there.
Yeah.
You wanna top them?
Yeah, just top them.
What would,
I would suggest topping them, and then to prevent this in the future, we can talk about some nice shrubs.
Okay.
And then that way you don't have to worry about something overgrowing your house.
Mhm.
So, that's fine. So, your neighbor can help us out. I've heard she likes those things.
Richard, you good? Any other
Oh,
comments, questions?
I'm good. I think it's a good plan.
So then, just to tie these pieces together, the shed for 47 came from 45. So really, it's not
moved
any,
it.
yeah, so really, it's not any more
sustainable.
of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, well, we bought a home with 2 sheds, and it's no need for 2 of them, and was going to just get rid of one. Neighbors just like, hey, if if we can move it, can we have it? I'm not gonna say no to repurposing it.
So then.
I have enough kid stuff that I could probably fill 2 sheds, but I can appreciate that too.
And then, positive to this is I met with Carrick, I'm gonna call them that from now on, Derek and Kate, actually the same day, and we were able to start facilitating access. So now DPW can come in and routinely clean this, because both of these property owners were taking it on themselves to clean out that culvert.
That's great.
That'd be good.
Always good to get the whole crew
That's exactly.
involved.
No, I just get on the phone.
Yeah. Meg, do you have any questions or comments on this?
No, I'm just, Rika, just to make sure I understand correctly, you'll just work with them going forward for plantings as well?
Yeah, so typically for minor buffer zone activities that have tree removal, we have a condition that stumps are left in place. So I will add an additional condition that at least for 45, those trees right adjacent here to the bank will be topped instead of ground down to the stump. And then I'll condition that a planting plan will need to be provided to the conservation agent.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
All for me.
Could probably build a tree house on those stumps.
Could possibly do that.
Mark, any questions or comments?
No, I think it's a good plan, Brika. Thank you.
Meg, can I have a motion to approve the MBZA, please?
Motion to approve the MBZA for 45 Southgate Road
Okay.
with conditions as set forth by Brika.
Great. Mark, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Great. Richard?
I vote to approve.
Meg?
I vote to approve.
Mark?
Vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well. Thanks very much, Russell.
Thank you.
Next up, we have an MBZA for 12 Quarry Way. Is the owner or the representative on with us?
I do not see them, no.
What was this for?
This was for 40 yards of fill being brought into a backyard that is significantly sloped down to a perennial stream. What's interesting to note for this property is that there is a berm between the perennial stream bank and this property owner's house. I don't know. They do have photos. 1 second. So here you go. So it looks like it's only a small dip, but this is a pretty significant berm. Brooke and I actually went out today to look at it because I wanted her take on the amount of fill. So as you can see, probably there's some micro topography shown here, but it's much larger in person. These are my 25-foot flags, mind you, that he circled. So they are looking to bring in fill to essentially level this area, and then they will hydroseed it to promote stabilization. We had talked about doing some plantings here. I don't know if you can tell in the photo, but there's a depression here, and then there's definitely a depression here. So water is coming off their property and pooling in these areas. My one caution, it's not so much a concern for the commission, but caution for the property owner, that they would probably want to do some mitigation in these areas or do some sort of runoff control. Otherwise, they're still just going to have pooling in that area, especially because those areas are within the 25-foot buffer zone, and we typically don't approve fill. But I don't see the property owner here, so.
Would it make sense to continue this and give you another couple weeks just to talk it through with Brooke and make sure that, I feel like this seems like one that it would be good to get it right.
Yes, I agree.
Richard, any thoughts?
No, I don't have any questions.
Meg, any questions for Nick?
So Rika, just, you think the berm will contain the fill naturally without needing any sort of additional retaining wall, et cetera, in there?
Yeah, yep. I even asked Brooke, or confirmed with Brooke, I don't think even erosion controls are necessary. That berm will contain it. My caution, again, wasn't so much for the commission to approve it, just I don't know if it would be a worthwhile endeavor financially for the property owner to purchase all this fill, install it, wait for roots to take and hydroseed, only for it to still just wash into these depressioned areas. So I was hoping to facilitate a discussion on that in front of the commission.
Okay.
Well, if you hydroseeded it and you put down a mat on it and you've got some good growth.
Like a blanket?
If you held your fingers just right, you didn't get a real big gully washer storm, you'd be good
Yeah.
after a few months.
Yeah. I still think, though, so, actually, that's a really good point. So they're looking to raise it a foot to a foot and a half. I still think without some sort of grading in those depressions, or even just some planting of something,
Did you say you could throw some fill into those depressions?
if you wanted to approve within the 25-foot,
I mean,
but then that would be on the applicant to request a variance.
how much fill would you have? A foot? Half a foot?
Yeah, maybe that. It's not
Seeded.
much. It is existing disturbed. So I think it's worthy of a discussion,
Sure.
but we need to have all
I mean,
parties for a discussion.
Go ahead,
Yeah, you're
Mark.
better off with the variance on the fill for that depression as opposed to the impact of the runoff, right?
Yeah, inevitably they would create a wetland, however small, but they would create a wetland.
Right, yeah.
That's what would happen.
You might want to advise them of that before they do any of this work,
Are you sure
More
you want
jurisdiction.
creating a new buffer zone.
That's exactly right.
I mean, we like wetlands.
Uh-huh.
That's great. But
Maybe that's not bad, right?
I did poke a hole also for what it's worth in both of those locations, and I didn't see hydric soils at all. So it's not there yet. But
Well, let's continue this, and then we can hopefully, if you're able to talk with them offline, it would be great if they could come in, though, and we could just have that conversation.
yeah.
But I don't see any issues with the proposal otherwise. Richard, can you make a motion to continue?
This is the corridor. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to continue the minor buffer zone activity for 12 Corey Way to the 22nd.
Okay, thank you. Meg, can I get a second, please?
Yeah, Meg Hagan, I second.
Mark, how do you vote?
Vote to continue.
Meg?
Vote to continue.
Vote to continue.
And I vote to continue as well. So the MBZA for 12 Corey Way is continued to the 22nd. And lastly, for MBZAs, we have one for 9 Maple Tree Lane. Is the owner or their representative with us?
How's it going? I'm Chris Driscoll. I live in 9 Maple Tree Lane.
How are
Nice
you,
to meet
Chris?
everybody.
Good to meet you. Can you just give us a quick overview of what you're asking for?
Yeah, so this is an after-the-fact petition, I guess. In that last storm that it was very, very cold, very windy, we had kind of like the gentleman prior in that Maple Street area, Maple Tree Lane offer. We have a lot of very, very large trees that just seem to be falling. We only bought the home in September this past year, and been trying to get settling in, moving from out of state. During that storm, we took significant impact, damage to a shed. We did have a tree actually fall, one to the left of that backhoe that actually did strike a portion of the house, damaging the roof, stuff like that. Stuff to the boat, all ancillary things that are just monetarily important. One of the larger oak trees, this picture doesn't really give you an idea of the size. These are 100-foot double, triple cluster oak trees. One of the branches actually fell off, just a branch from one of them, and struck the ground by one of my I have 3 children, the oldest 19 months, struck the room by my oldest, or struck by my oldest room, missed it by about 6 feet, actually shattered a portion of our walkway Recently just found out it broke our irrigation lines under the ground. I mean, this was a tree probably, or a tree branch probably 12 to 18 inches. At that point, I had a conversation with my wife, a very frank one, and she was like, some of these need to come down. We need to find somebody that can do it. We brought a licensed arborist or somebody in like a tree company. They evaluated a lot of the trees on the property. We really wanted to just have any trees that were compromised that could strike the house, specifically our children's, whatever needed to happen, like have them evaluated, deal with it, whatever. They took down those trees. A lot of them are rotted, and I didn't realize that they were rotted due to, I guess, like maybe change in topography and stuff like that. Go ahead.
Crouch like that, it makes them vulnerable.
Okay, yeah, I don't know trees very well, so,
Okay.
I just, significantly large trees, and it was weird because the way they explained the trees were actually compromised higher up, but not where you could see them as somebody lay walking by on the ground. So I understood it. They took these trees down, especially these bigger ones, and it took other ones down on the property along with it, and it cleared more than I thought it would be, but just I guess I didn't understand how big these trees were, the canopy and stuff like that. But long story short, they're down now. This is an after the fact application. Well, we feel much better about it. At the same time, we're in a rush to coming home. There's a lot of debris still. We have small children, and it just looks. I would like to get it back to the way the rest of the neighborhood looks, very, very nice. And we're the new neighbors that moved in, and it looks like a hurricane came through our backyard a little bit. And and Brick has been fantastic on sort of guiding me through this process because I don't know it.
You still have the trees laying on the ground out there?
So they offered to basically chew them up, take them away, and dispose of them. I chose not to. I said you can keep them on the property. We split it. We like to use our fireplace. We cook outdoors. Stuff like we enjoy our outdoors. So I didn't want to just throw them away. It would seem like a waste of where it could be repurposed, used for something else. And so I've tried to keep as much of the wood on the property. I've found through this company, after permits or variances are granted, they're willing to split it, stack it, so they can be used for future purposes and stuff like that, and not just make waste of a resource.
Okay.
Sounds like a good idea. Provided it doesn't go rotten before you burn it.
One of the
Stress him out.
yeah, we have a shed. The shed was significantly damaged. It was older. I think the original owner of the house, or one of them, it was their shed. So it broke I had somebody, like a carpenter, come out and try and see what they could be done, but between the roof, the broken frame, all that stuff, they were just buy a new shed. And our plan is to sort of have roof line sort of space to be able to stack the wood and hopefully preserve it.
Sounds like a good idea.
Brika, anything to add?
So I think a path forward, do you want to keep all the wood that's there? So Pat, you've seen the photos. I didn't share the photos with the rest of the commission. But
It's a lot of wood, isn't it?
it's a lot of wood. And it's stacked very nicely. It would still be considered a stockpile, but it's free carbon and it's not treated. And as if you don't want to move it, I'm comfortable letting it be where it is since it's already there. It's not in the 25 foot, it's within the 50 to 100. It's towards the house from their rock wall. So I'm okay with that. The only thing that I would mention is that when they are mobilizing through, if they bring more machinery, and this is me sticking up for you as well, because it was wet when I was there, and they did have some ruts, either have them lay mats down or smooth out their ruts in your yard.
Okay.
And then you'll want to revegetate very, very quickly.
Okay.
Yeah. You don't want to let him make ruts in your yard, you'll be filling them in forever.
Well, you'll make wetlands. So.
We like wetlands,
My
but
precautionary tale to you.
if you don't need to replicate.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I'm okay with that, and then I'm okay coordinating with you when they're back on site.
Okay. Meg, any questions, comments?
Just when the trees came down, were the stumps left in place? And is your plan to leave the stumps?
Which ones? Some of them
Did some take the stumps out?
Yeah, the tip over deal. Other ones like broke. And I haven't walked out there thus far. I really, I have no idea. I kind of have been leaving it up to the experts like yourself.
I was gonna say, no, you don't have to apologize, and I'm sorry to interrupt. It's still very messy, Meg.
Okay.
I'm comfortable, if you're comfortable, crossing that bridge once we get to that. It's pretty substantial what's out there right now. And it is difficult to ascertain what's there, what's not there. As I'm sure you've picked up, typically the commission likes to leave stumps in place. For ones that
Not if they've already, I mean,
If
if
the
they're
root
pulled
balls
out
are
of the
out,
ground from the
yeah.
tree coming down, that's different. But if you're taking down a tree, normally we
So
have
if the
the
root
balls.
ball's already out, that's fine. Fill it, plant over it, seed it, stabilize those soils for something that, I think there is one that they left the stump in place already. They topped it. I think it's quite close. It's either this one, or maybe I'm making it up. I might be making it up. You know your backyard more than I. But
I knew it before. After they moved so quickly, I really didn't. I mean, I went to work. You came back, and in 12 hours, it was substantially different. And I go to work in the dark, come home in the dark. It was a lot, more than I expected, and I didn't realize the extent and stuff like that.
so I'm fine crossing it once we get to that, and then we can discuss.
I think so too. I mean, and when, we kind of have our hierarchy of things that we care about, safety's at the very top of that, and that trumps a lot of other things. So, all of that is understandable, and I think not an issue to just take time and figure out, what you plan to do with, with the trees that have been taken down, and I would just ask if you can continue to coordinate with BRECA on just how, whether there's any questions over access, and just doing it in a way that, is being as, kind of least intrusive as possible. But I have no other questions or no issues. Mark, you good?
Yeah, just a quick question. I noticed Ricky had in the notes comments on restoration components. Any additional details on that or thoughts?
Yeah, so that was more the soil stabilization, determining what the commission would prefer for the wood stockpiling, which again I think is negligible personally. And then coordinating in the future if you want to plant anything. So same thing, we want to make sure it's natives. You can have ornamental in your existing disturbed lawn that I'm not going to police you on. I'll still, Bible thump the natives, but further back towards the wetland area, if you revegetate, definitely we'd want some native plantings back there.
Absolutely.
And you can always coordinate it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I
When the time
figured we
comes to
would
do
talk
that,
about it. Yep, absolutely.
Great. Mark, can I have a motion to approve the MBCA for 9 Maple?
Yeah, motion to approve the minor buffer zone activities for 9 Maple.
Great. Meg, can I get a second, please?
Greg Hagan, I second.
Richard?
I vote to approve.
Mark?
Vote to approve.
Meg?
Vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well. Thanks very much, Chris.
Thanks for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Next up, we have a permit modification for 33 Charles River Drive.
Hi, Dan.
All right.
Vance Peroni, 33 Charles River
Good to
Drive.
see you, Vince.
So we had one condition related to a runoff, stormwater runoff, and in discussion with Brika, what we had determined is that in the upper left, we would put, and this kind of just shows both ideas that Brika had given us, either planting some native trees there or using the existing boulders that we have to slow down the runoff that we might get. So, so that's what we have there. And then also, I know we've been asked to we reduce the impervious coverage that we had originally from the original drawing. And that's because with the original drawing, we had been at 28% impervious coverage. And this gets us down to what was required for the 25% impervious coverage.
So that's not us, that's other departments.
Okay.
But so he's in for a site modification, and then I can finally sign off on your building permit. So that'll be good. Just in time.
Okay. Any issues with the modification there?
No.
No. Okay.
I'd recommend you approve it.
Questions,
I
comments?
don't have a question.
You good? Meg, any questions?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Mark? You're on mute, Mark.
Sorry, no questions for me. Thank you, though.
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if it wasn't.
Yeah, if somebody wasn't on mute talking, right?
Richard, motion to approve the modification?
Yeah, I'll give you a motion. I'd like to give you a motion to approve the modification to 33 Charles River Drive.
Thank you. Meg?
Meg Hagan, a second.
Okay. Mark, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Meg?
I vote to approve.
I vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well. Thanks,
Thank
Vince.
you very much.
And then lastly, for modifications, we have 137 Mastro Drive.
Good evening, Brandon Carr with DePreet Engineering. We're here for a modification to the existing order of conditions, which was issued in, I think, August of '21. So when that permit was completed, the house as proposed, so if you were to go, I don't know, do you have the overall, Brika, do you have the overall approved plan from Concom up there that shows the driveway?
I have the one you sent me.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
so when you approve the project, the driveway that goes off the left of the screen, there's a stream crossing before it gets to Mastro. Previously approved, there was a sewer force main that ran under the driveway, and the modification that we're proposing tonight is to remove the sewer force main. So it removes that from stream crossing from the riverfront area, and we've gotten approval from the Board of Health for a septic in the back of the property there. So all work is located outside the 200-foot riverfront. It's no change in limit of work from what was previously approved. That dashed box you see down the bottom, that's Title V requires to show a reserve area on the site. So that's if, basically when you get your septic permit, you have to show 2 spots where you could build a septic on the site. Where the proposed is and then the reserve area. So the reserve area, the testing, it was in a way tough to find area in the back here within the limit of work that met the requirements for the septic. So the reserve area was showing inside the 200-foot riverfront. We acknowledge that if that was ever needed to be built, down the road, probably if the septic had issues, you would replace it in place. But if, for some reason, we're talking 20, 30 years from now, the septic was to fail and that reserve area was to be utilized, we'd obviously have to file a permit with the commission. I did look at the riverfront area section of CMR. Previously, so there's about 680,000 square feet, 623,000 square feet of riverfront area on site. So you're allowed to disturb up to 5%, 5,000 square feet or 10%, whatever's larger. So by the regulations, you'd be allowed 62,000, a little bit more than that, square feet of disturbance. The original permit for the driveway crossing that I mentioned allowed 16,000. So technically, there's still 35,000 to work with. I would estimate that installing a septic would take 3,000 to 4,000 square feet. So even if down the road, and I'm saying that's not proposed tonight, if that ever was needed, we'd still fall under the regulations, and, you know, that would be, in my mind, an approvable action. Again, we're not proposing that tonight. We're not proposing any modification to the approved limit of work, just the change from septic pump with a force main to a septic.
Okay. Yeah, that all makes sense. I think, you know, and I appreciate, you know, that you understand you would need to come back in
Yeah.
for that. I think, you know, we would want to note that explicitly in any approval, that we are not approving any, even if you have the right to do that.
Yeah, we're fine with a condition that says, you know, we're well aware that if the reserve area was ever to be utilized, we'd have to come back for a new permit.
Okay. Brika, I know you were out there and have any thoughts, comments?
Yes. So
Context.
thanks, Pat. My most recent site visit, and these issues have been remedied, but I noticed that the wattles were actually perpendicular to the stream. That is a big no-no, and for right reasons, right? We want the stream to be able to flow the way that the stream should flow. So that would be considered an impact. That has been remedied. I did notice that there were cut trees, and I did confirm that with DPW that they were cut, just because, you know, what I think is cut may not be cut, so they were cut, and that's actually to the north side of the stream. I have yet to respond to Beth on that, but they are there. So that's something that should at least be moved. You can leave them in the buffer zone. I'm fine with that, right? Free carbon. If they fell anyways, they would fall, but they should just be moved. And then I know we wanted to talk about every other week reports. Just given the history, given the amount of impacts, I'm not sure if you've been briefed, but with this stream crossing, there was never a pre-con meeting. That was never communicated. There wasn't a notification prior to work. Then there's been some other minor construction, environmental construction issues. For example, there was fill in the stream bed that I, you know, had to communicate back to the contractor to remove. So these are very, in my mind, from a construction monitoring viewpoint, very easy things that should be done, but are not readily being addressed. And I think that every other week reports would really help that, and it would be a resource, truly, to the contractor and yourself if I can see that, and then I can help guide you through this process so there are no future violations. So that's my thought.
Would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, I would just, could we clarify that, could the contractor be the one doing the reporting?
That's
with my oversight, just trying to save, you know,
no, that's just fine.
4 or 5 hours of charging an engineer to go out there every other week can add up over, you know, the life of the project. So
It doesn't have to
so
be the
that's fine.
engineer.
So we'll work with the contractor. They have to do their, you know, their SWIP reporting anyway, so they have to have eyes on the limit of work.
Yeah.
Just to correspond with that, we'll send it over to you every other week in an email with pictures.
Yeah, that's fine.
But I mean, I assume, once, you know, the culvert's in, the crossing's in, they really shouldn't be working in that area.
It already is in.
Yeah, I know, no, I'm saying it already is in, so from once they remedy these issues, they shouldn't really be active in that area.
Yep, so it's just within resource. But any paving, for example, it would still be nice to get those SWIPs. They're already being written, so I can check on ES controls. That's still within conservation purview. You know, any construction right here, especially, you know, adjacent to the reserve area, since it is very close and it's the same system, more or less the same plan, I would suggest that, you know, maybe even the well, any limits of work, even if it's limit of work from installing this well, that's within the 200-foot buffer zone, that falls within jurisdiction, that falls within purview. So I think that would be the best foot forward and allow for communication and everybody to work together.
Okay, yeah, we're fine with that.
Richard?
Fine.
Meg, any questions or comments?
No questions for me, thank you.
Mark, any questions or comments?
No, I'm good, thank you.
So thanks for agreeing on the reporting. I think, you know, this is an instance where it seems like the biggest issue has been communication.
Yeah, I agree.
And so,
I agree.
going forward, it'd be great if there could be more responsiveness, and I know that's not on you necessarily, but
there has been some turnover in the engineering team and things throughout the life of the project. So there's been some things that, we thought maybe were already in place, and, so from now on, we'll make sure to communicate better.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. So, Brika, would,
You'd approve it with the additional conditions. So you'd essentially enact special condition 29, right to oppose additional conditions, with special condition 32, and then the condition that the reserve area, if they ever do utilize that, or this approval does not, exempt
right, this
them.
approval does not extend to the construction or build out of any reserve area, that would need to be a subsequent application. Anything further before we vote on this one?
I actually had one other thing. So thank you for coming in with the performance standards that I asked for Riverfront area. We have it on record, but if you actually have that written out too, if you just want to send an email, that's fine, because then I can just send it in the file, and then it's just CYA.
Sure. Great. Richard, can I have a motion to approve?
It's going to be a mouthful.
As stated.
I'd like to make a motion for a permit modification and extension to 137 Mastro Drive to include special condition 29, special condition 32, and it does not imply extension to the reserve area.
Okay. Meg, can you second that, please?
I second that.
Mark, how do you vote?
Vote to approve.
Meg?
Vote to approve.
Richard?
I vote to approve.
And I vote to approve as well. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just a couple more administrative items. First up is, this is your favorite one, I think, Richard.
Continuing saga.
We have the open enforcement order that we have on 305 Union Street. Just an update, on this one, that, we've been extending this for increments of 30 days.
We can almost say years now.
We're coming up on a year, I think.
First week I started, April 25th.
The owner has submitted a non-traditional work plan to Mass DEP. Right now, our understanding is that Mass DEP is just reviewing and hasn't formally accepted that or deemed it acceptable. So I think until they do so, we should just continue to have the enforcement order open. And so I think if we can vote to extend for another 30 days, and we'll see.
Why don't we do it for a couple of years?
Cover our bases.
Okay, so we're gonna need.
I'll give it to you
I'd
for
like
this
to make
week.
a motion to extend the, what would you say, the violation?
The enforcement order.
The enforcement order for 305 Union Street for 30 days.
Great. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you.
Mark, can you second that, please?
Second that.
Right. Meg?
I approve the extension.
Thanks, Meg. Mark?
Vote to extend.
Richard?
Vote to extend.
I vote to extend as well, so maybe this will do the trick. Minutes for February 23rd. Were there any comments or questions on these?
None for me, thank you.
Mark?
I'm
you
good.
Richard?
Not for me.
Meg, can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Motion to approve the minutes from our Conservation Commission meeting of February 23rd.
Mark? Can you second
I'll
that?
second that.
Richard?
I approve.
Mark? Can't hear you.
To approve.
Give us a thumbs up. Meg, do you vote to approve?
Aye.
I vote to approve.
Vote to approve.
Thank you, Mark. I vote to approve as well. So the minutes for February 23rd are approved. And then the last item, Meg wanted to see if you could give an update on our environmental extravaganza.
Yes, so Aaron Gallagher and I have met and have our plan for our environmental extravaganza. So what we're looking at is doing in conjunction actually with on the 22nd, so with the rec department's cleanup day. I actually spoke with Brian Jetty today to go over the plan with him and make sure he was aligned with what we were looking to do. Got a little background, which I did not know that they previously used to do a lot more with the pickup as far as environmental education, sort of pre-COVID era, I think sort of pre my being in town era. So I'm excited to kind of get this back up and off the ground. So what we still need to get a permit from the town to use the town common, so I'll be working on that. But what the event sort of looks like is having different stations set up on the common where families can come together and have interactive ways to learn about different ways to help protect our environment. So some of the things that we're looking at include such things as maybe having waste management come in and do a recycling sorting. Brian said they used to do that as like relay races with different teams, and the kids had a lot of fun with it. So probably doing something like that. We're looking at having different companies come in, such as a solar company, to do a little area on renewables, and maybe having like a pinwheel craft or something with that. Looking at composting and gardening. Different companies coming in for that. I'm going to reach out to Fairmont Fruit Farm to see if they'd be interested in doing something for gardening. Brika and I were discussing, well, I was volunteering Brika, yes, if she's willing to come in and talk to the kids about the beaver deceiver. Brika, Erin and I were even talking about doing like a fun sort of dam making competition with different tools. We can talk about other activities that could go with it, but just something fun and interactive for the kids to kind of bring it all to life for them. We're talking about doing a wetlands protection, obviously, section as well. Brika and I had a discussion because I had sort of initially thought that Jonathan would be a great person to come in for that. But we were talking about
conflict.
Conflict of interest, and thank you. I was trying to look for the word. Thank you, Brika. Okay. So maybe just for visibility purposes and making sure that we're in the clear with everything, looking for maybe a different wetland scientist to come in and help us out with that if Brika's going to be busy with the beaver deceiver stuff, which we think will be a huge hit with the kids.
I don't know any other wetland scientists, it's just in slim pickings. Yeah, that's fine. I'll reach out to the network.
Thank you. I'm sure you have a massive network, so hopefully we can get someone to come in for that. I was saying when Brika did the stand at the Touch-A-Truck, she had JD walk out, like she talked to him about what wetlands were and what her role is in being a wetland scientist, and she had him physically walk out with a tape measure to see what 100 feet was, and he loved it and still talks about it to this day. So I feel like that visual for kids is kind of cool.
It's a good tripwire.
Like that, right?
Sorry, yeah, it was a good tripwire.
And then it was looking at maybe DPW coming in for doing something with the rainwater barrels. Ryan was saying they used to have water saver kits that they used to give out at their previous events, which might be something to see if they have anything like that still available. The library is going to do a environmentally focused story walk for us around the common, so the families can also have a little story walk to do on the common as well. So how Ryan and I had discussed it today is their pickup starts at Beaver Pond, and it is from 9 to 12. So maybe we look at sort of staggering the event and having it start at 11. And he would promote it as the town common being the finish line for all of the, for the town pickup, so that when people finish, they come to the common to get some more education and have some fun. They talked about, he talked about that they previously had pizza, and then he'd be happy to provide that again for anyone who's coming out of their budget.
Okay.
And that's my overview. So what questions do you guys have?
So I just have one, Meg, since I was with Derek, as I usually am. And
yes.
So he is coming on April 23rd. He was planning on stopping by, but was not able to staff. And he does the composting rain barrel with Kate. Kate actually runs the rain barrel program. She lives in Vermont. But Jake and Doug, they're the water and sewer, they do the water save. So, and,
Okay.
and since they're all in the same, I mean, it's all DPW, I have no doubt that they can volunteer. I'm going to sign them up. I'm going to volunteer them up. Yeah. I have no doubt that they'd want to do that, and then they can also, help facilitate that composting, rain barrel. And then, it's very possible, now I'm volunteering someone else, that Derek's guy that does the recycling center with the compost might be able to help facilitate compost as well. So
That'd be great.
Just some ideas.
Yep, so I will plan on picking Brika's brain and utilizing all of your connections and resources to
And
help
then
pull it together.
one other thing, and just, who's the guy from the state?
I still don't know. Pat, do you know?
Who does Aaron talk about? Is it Mike Downey?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
volunteering Mike Downey, too.
Okay. He's on vacation
couldn't
until
remember
April
for the life of
23rd.
Oh,
You're
well.
dangerous to be
but-
around.
But he has other DCR service foresters, so I'll tell Downey that he needs to get somebody else.
I mean, he's like part of the family now.
He
so-
is. You know what? I think he's called me 4 times since Friday. So, yes. So, yeah,
For context, Pat, for some context on that, when Erin and I were discussing, she said she had an awesome conversation with you and she was really excited about it, but couldn't remember who it was or what it was about. So we just wrote down on our spreadsheet here, guy from the
state.
Yeah, no,
Guy from the state. Erin talked to Pat.
Mike is a friend of Franklin, so.
He really is.
Yeah.
He's lovely.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
that all sounds great. I mean, it might, I don't know what's easiest, Meg, for you. If you have like an Excel sheet or something, where you can assign us out so that we can all help, with reaching out to people, because I know that's a lot, and you will be coming off of a marathon.
I'm like, I have nothing else going on right now, so.
So maybe some of us can
Marathon,
help
that's
with
impressive.
I'm running Boston.
All right, hey.
Yeah, thanks.
So we can all pitch in, and then so that'll be on the 22nd. The 23rd we'll have our Del Cart, and I think for that, if it's kind of an open house, I don't think it needs to be anything fancy. We've done trash pickups. I think the great thing about that is that Del Cart has the past couple of years we go out and there's really not a whole lot of trash to pick up. But having an open house and just hopefully the weather will be as good as it's been.
Sorry, I was just very excited. So I coordinated with actually a past client who's a wetland scientist. He routinely volunteers and does vernal pool explorations. So I roped him. I do have Mike Downey. Sorry, Megan. So he'll be tabling. We'll have Derek doing his compost bin and rain barrel. I'm sure AgCom will show up. We do have a Girl Scout troop coming that they want to volunteer. They could only do Sunday, actually. So it's really nice that we're having both days. It's a whole weekend, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's really special that Saturday is the traditional Earth Day events and themes, and then Sunday is more, I don't want to say holistic, but more natural resources and actually, like getting out and seeing those, getting out in the woods.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
that'll be good.
Rico, once you have, because Erin will put together some marketing things for the 22nd as well, and I'll pull in stuff from Ryan. And if you want to send me all the, I know you were working on the flyer for the 23rd. I can do some social media blasts, kind of tying all the things together and promoting all 3 events to hopefully get the whole town involved.
As a thought, have you thought of, I actually haven't talked to Ryan about it either, but we had a food truck last fall at our Del Cart event, actually an ice cream truck.
Oh.
Ice cream truck, right?
Yeah, so that might be something to reach out to. I have their contact.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have CNC?
Maybe? I
Someone?
don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, yes? I don't know. I can't remember.
That's fine.
It was a blur.
There's a lot around, so no, that's fine. Yeah, that sounds great. That's a great idea.
Okay, and then I'll connect you with Jake and Doug for the water save, and then there with DPW.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
And Ryan did say today that he wants to put together a call in March that he was going to loop you into, and he was going to send me the invite for it too now.
Okay.
With DPW as well to kind of tie everything together on one call.
Okay. I'll remind
I don't
him.
know a date or time for that, but
I'll remind him. He's a busy guy, so, you know, he's a
busy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's Ryan's favorite time of year, baseball season.
Yeah. Well, there's only 2 seasons, so.
It's baseball season and the rest of the year.
Yep, that's exactly right. See, I know something about sports. I read their sign.
Great. Well, Meg, thanks for organizing all of that.
Thanks, Meg.
you're very welcome.
So excited.
No,
I
it's
think
gonna be-
you can thank your wife too, Pat.
Oh, but
We can make them make beaver tails. Like
There you
fun
go.
Idea.
Beaver tails.
I like that. That's cute.
Yeah, I like that too.
Super
I'm
cute.
gonna be on Pinterest all weekend. That's all I'm gonna be doing.
are we on LinkedIn?
I mean, I'm pretending to complain, but I'm really excited, so.
Pinterest and Canva, we're gonna be all over.
Oh
it.
my gosh, Canva. Canva's the death of me. Yep. Okay.
Great. Anything else before we break?
That's it from me.
Yeah.
All good.
Mark, you want to give us a motion to close?
Motion to close the meeting.
Richard?
Second it.
Meg?
I vote to close.
Mark?
Vote to close.
Vote to close.
Vote to close. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Pat.
Have a good night,
See you
guys.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Recording stopped.